non-discriminatory killer of about 10 people per day and approximately thousands of people per year. Drowning is the second leading killer of accidental deaths in the U.S. and around the world. This topic especially tugs at my heartstrings because as a swimmer myself and a swim lessons teacher, I do not believe that something so fixable and simple as not being able to swim should have the power to take someone's life away. Why is it that the death of an 80-year-old is not as tragic as the death of a 5-year-old? Well, the answer is easy. The 80-year-old has already lived their life. The 5-year-old hasn't even begun. According to the American Red Cross, drowning is the second leading cause of death for children between the ages of 1 and 14. Younger children are at a higher risk for drowning because they haven't fully developed their motor skills. So whether it's a swimming pool or something as simple as a bathtub, either one could be extremely, extremely dangerous. A staggering, huge number of minorities do not know how to swim compared to Caucasian children. In USA Today, 58% of African American children and 56% of Hispanic children cannot swim. That is almost twice the rate for Caucasian children. Part of this comes from the discrimination in the 1960s, where blacks and a lot of Mexicans or Hispanics also were not allowed to use public pools, or there were segregated pools, so they never learned to swim. And studies have shown that if the parents never learn to swim, then it is less likely that they will have their children learn to swim. This can be seen in the extremely low numbers of minority swimmers. Now, don't think that just because when someone is young and they didn't drown, they're fine, they're good for the rest of their life. This is completely untrue. It's become, or our society has grown so that it's not cool to swim at the aquatic center anymore. We want to go swim at the dam or in the river. Well, according to the Center for Disease Control, adults, more than half of all drowning for adults occurs in natural water settings. Houston, we have a problem here. People are dying because of drowning, something that is completely preventable. Not knowing how to swim is 100% treatable. So let's cure ourselves of this problem so that one day none of us ever have to deal with this. If I asked all of you to swim down and back at the big aquatic center pool without stopping or touching the walls or taking a rest at the end, how many of you could do it? Like seriously, raise your hands. How many of you could do it? That is awesome. But you also have to think about, that's a swimming pool. There's no tides, there's no currents, you can touch, most of you, there's a bottom there. Now for those of you who can't, don't be embarrassed. Have you ever heard the saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Well, that's a lie. So everyone can learn to swim, regardless of your age. If you want to learn how to swim and you don't know already, the easiest thing right now for our age would be joining swim team. Swim team is not for people who only know how to swim. That's what JV is for. Swim team, you can join swim team whether you have never been in the water before or whether you're a proficient swimmer. It doesn't matter. The whole point is to learn how to swim and then every day in practice improve those swimming skills. However, if you don't want to swim, I respect your decision. I understand that swimming is not for everybody. A lot of us are saying, I would never want to swim. If you paid me $500, I would not join swim team. I understand that. There are other options. The Aquatic Center can provide lessons for adult swimmers, and they can schedule them before the pool is open to the public. So you don't have to worry about having to try to learn how to swim when there's people jumping all over the place. And I know it's kind of embarrassing when you're like with an instructor and there's little 5-year-olds swimming around. I understand that. And if you're extremely terrified of the water, get lessons, get help, because you never know when you're going to be faced with a situation where you're going to have to swim. If you already kind of know how to swim, you're comfortable in the water, but maybe your skills aren't super strong, ask someone to help you. Ask me, for goodness sake. I would be willing to help any one of you. If you want to swim, but you're a little bit nervous, if you can't touch, or if you're not near a wall, you kind of freak out, I will help you. Just ask a friend to just get in the water with you. and become comfortable with the water. Because once you're comfortable, it's not a scary place anymore. Once you know how to handle your own body in the water, it's not scary. Now, for those of you who say, I'm never, ever going to go near the water ever again in my entire life, I'm never going to take a bath ever, I am not going to swim. I seriously, I respect your decision. I understand that, not everybody can fit into, you can't fit a square peg into a round hole. One thing that I stress, absolutely stress, is that when or if you have children, get them swim lessons. The Red Cross confirms that the drowning risk for children who have had swim lessons between when they're younger, about the ages 4 to 5, is significantly less for children who start at a later age, and also rock bottom compared to children who have never had swim lessons. Your children or a child that you love will encounter water at some point during their lives. Don't risk drowning. Everyone should learn to swim because sometime during your life, you're going to be faced with a situation where swimming is involved. We live on a planet that's covered 70% by water. It's going to happen. And in reality, swimming is really fun. And if you've never played around in the water, you are missing something that is amazingly cool. So please, if you don't know how to swim, I challenge all of you to make it a goal this summer to learn. If you can't already swim, then help out a friend who maybe isn't quite as comfortable in the water as you are. But most importantly, encourage your family members to get their young children into lessons as early as possible. Drowning does happen. Don't let it happen to you or someone you know.
Great. Questions for Estany? Yes, Louise.
What is the easiest swimming technique?
Well, I think the easiest way to start out swimming, is that kind of what you're asking? Or what's the easiest?
For not a strong swimmer.
Well, first of all, floating. If you can float, you're pretty good. So floating, especially on your back, because obviously you can breathe if you're on your back. That's like the building block. I mean, when I teach my little 3-year-olds, when I have them in the water, our main thing is floating and learning how to kick. Because if you can float on your stomach, you can kick to a wall. Or if you're on your back, you can paddle to a wall. So that's the basic thing. And also, it just depends on what you're comfortable with. Because you could either want to swim on your back or swim on your stomach. And that's what you want to start with. If you're more comfortable on the water on your back, then you want to start with those kind of back floats, back kickings. If you're more comfortable on your stomach and you're okay with maybe having your face in the water, then you want to start with more type of freestyle type things where you can swim on your front. So it just depends on the person. It's all about individual and how they want to learn. Yes.
Is there validity to the claim that you shouldn't eat 30 minutes before swimming? No?
That's just a myth. I eat all the time before swimming, and I've never drowned, so living proof here. No, it doesn't. I've read research that says that doesn't have any claim, and I personally know it doesn't have any.
Okay.
Anybody else? Morgan?
So I have younger cousins. What age do you recommend they should start swimming lessons?
As early as possible. I mean, the perfect scenario would be if your aunt, I guess it is, if your aunt was like taking them to the little baby swim classes where they're just like in the water. Because if you can start getting familiar in the water at a really young age, then you won't establish that fear as you get older, and it won't be so scary. So when they're 4 or 5 and they start with the floating or the kicking, it's going to be easier because they have experience in the water. That's why the American Red Cross, like I said that the earlier you start, the better. Like if you have maybe a 7 or 8-year-old who's starting, it might be a little bit more difficult than if they're 4 or 5 and they're already comfortable in the water. They already feel safe. Being in the water is all about feeling safe. You start early and it's not a scary thing when you're little, then it's not going to be a scary thing when you get older.
Great. Thank you very much, Estany.